Have you ever been watching a movie or a show and say there's a mystery going on? You're looking at all these different things that are taking place and you're like, surely that person is the one that's done it. Surely this person is the one that's going to help. Surely this person is going to do this, this, or this. And then they don't do it. And you're like, that's interesting. And then another person walks up like, that person's got it. That person will do it. This person will do X, Y, and Z. And then they don't do it. And you're like, is anyone actually going to help? Is anyone going to be there for that person? Who is actually going to do something? And then the next person shows up, and you're like, no chance. They're going to pass it on, right? It's like the worst thing whenever you go to a restaurant, and they're like, I'll pay for the person behind me. You know, it just keeps going and keeps going. It's like the opposite. It's like, I'm not paying for anybody, right? They're going to pick up my tab. And then the next, that person comes up, the least suspecting of a person, yet they do what the other ones have failed to do. Sometimes the most unlikely hero happens to be the main hero in the story. And we're going to see that as we continue over our study of the life of Christ. We've been going over this on Wednesday night. We talked about it this morning. But it's such a beautiful story when you look at the parable of the Good Samaritan, as so many people call it, of an unlikely character becoming the hero in the whole story. And so as we start in Luke 10 this evening, Jesus has just gone through and he has talked to the religious leaders of that time and time again. They're missing the point. They're looking for worldly things. Jesus has now sent out the 72. They've come back and they're joyful. And he's gone after these cities. They've convinced him of being possessed by a demon. And as we enter this story, it says in Luke 10, starting in verse 25, it says, "And behold, a lawyer stood up to put him to the test." Time and time again, they've tried to test Jesus. And as him being the perfect example that he is, we can see that we too are going to be tested. Do you not see the world today poking and testing Christians, seeing how we're going to respond, trying to get us to respond in a negative way so they can be like, told you. I told you that's how they were going to respond. I told you they were just, what? Hypocrites. I told you they were fake. They don't actually mean that. They don't care. The world's always trying to put us to the test. And they were trying to put Jesus to the test here. And it says, "Teacher, what shall I do to inherit eternal life?" What a beautiful question that is, if he was meaning it genuinely. Our now brother this morning basically asked and answered that question himself during our Sunday morning lesson. What must I do to inherit eternal salvation? This lawyer, this scribe, was asking the same thing. He knew what he needed to do. He had been studying the Word. He knew. He says, "What shall I do to inherit eternal life?" In verse 26 he said to him, "What is written in the law? How do you read it?" Jesus knows that this person knows. He knows that he's not asking genuinely. He says, "Well, what do you say? You're the scribe. You're the lawyer. You're the one that should know." And I look at this question, and I ask us this question. If someone were to walk up to one of us today and ask us that exact same question, whether they are doing it in a almost mocking way or a testing way, as this person is, or they're doing it in a genuine way, how would we answer? Do we feel confident in our answer? Can we walk them through the answer? Can we help guide them through the answer? So he says, what is written in the law? How do you read it? And he answered, he gives a beautiful answer, to be honest with you. "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself." Now you can go through there and you can circle, you can underline, you can highlight, I guess I'll say all of them, the all parts. It's not a portion of it. And that's something that I was getting at this morning. In this world today, some people, and I hope this is not happening to us, some people you look at the way the world has shifted. We have AI and we have all these automated things. You look at the factories and stuff now, everything is more automated. Why are they automated? Why do we have so much AI use? It's to make things easier for us. It's to make things more automated, right? It's quicker. Well, that trickles into our life and we start looking at what's the least I can do to get this answer, this response. And unfortunately, that's crept into the church in some places. And people are trying to do the least they can do, yet they're expecting the very best, the very most from the Father on high. What a sad approach that is. Why give God our least when we're expecting his most, his best. And so he says, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart. It's not part of it. It's not 99.9% of it. It's all your heart. When you think about the things in the world today, boy, your heart can be troubled. Boy, your heart can be ripped to, it seems like 1,000 pieces. People get torn up over relationships and everything else in this world. It can literally feels like it's breaking your heart. We should love the Lord with all our heart. He should be at the top of our list. But not only that, and with all your soul. You see, your heart is eventually going to lose its beat. Eventually, it'll have its final beat. Your last breath will be drawn. But your soul lives forever. Your soul continues on with all your soul. And not only that, with all your strength. With everything you've got, with all of your being, you are to love the Lord. And with all your mind. Is that hard today? I used in Bible class this morning, I used the reference of a squirrel. And it gets 99.9% of the way across the street, and then it's like shiny objects, and it runs back the other way. And although it got 99.9% of the way to the finish line, it didn't cross the finish line. And it missed the whole purpose of what it was trying to accomplish. With all your whole heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind. Our mind can become consumed with so many things in this world today. Our mind must be focused on Him. And your neighbor as yourself. Do we struggle with that in the world today? Boy, do we ever. The world would be so much of a better place if we would treat our neighbors, if we would treat people in the brotherhood as we would treat ourselves. Boy, you see disputes of all different kinds inside the brotherhood and all throughout the world. We need to keep going back to the fact that Jesus placed us before His own life. Jesus placed Him before Him staying in a perfect place. He came down here so that He could put us and give us redemption. Verse 28, and He said to him, you have answered correctly. Do this and you will live. He answers correctly. He starts out by testing Jesus. He gives a beautiful answer that we can live from today, because what's so beautiful is if you love the Lord with your God with all your heart, and if you love with all your soul, with all your strength, with all your mind, and you love your neighbors yourself, what have you done? What do you think you're going to do? You're going to put others before yourself? Absolutely. Are you going to make sure God's in His rightful position? Absolutely. Are you going to obey what God has commanded us to obey? Absolutely. All the fruits will follow after that. And He says, you answered correctly. Do this and you will live. I thought He was already living. Doesn't He already have life? We can all be living, but are we really living? I told our brother this morning, when you make this commitment and you come back out of the water, you get to live a life worth living. Before, you were just living, but now you have meaning. Now you have purpose. Now you get to live a life worth living. And you get to have confidence in the fact that you get to spend eternity in heaven. Verse 29, as we talked about confidence in the three different types this morning, you can see that this lawyer, this scribe, definitely had an overconfidence issue, as we can see in 29. He says, but he, desiring to justify himself. Oh, there's people around. Oh, I'm doing those things. He said, I'm living. If I do these things, I'll be living. I need to make myself what? Look better. I need to justify myself. And he said, and who is my neighbor? Jesus replied, and this is going to be our main focus this evening. Jesus replied, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he fell among robbers, who stripped him and beat him and departed, leaving him half dead. Now by chance, a priest was going down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. So likewise, a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he journeyed, came to where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. He went to him and bound up his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he set him on his own animal and brought him to an inn and took care of him. And the next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper, saying, take care of him, and whatever more you spend, I will repay you when I come back. Which of these three do you think proved to be a neighbor to the man who fell among the robbers?" He said, "The one who showed him mercy." And Jesus said to him, "You go and do likewise." When you look at this story, the priest could very easily, in today's world, be the preacher, could very easily be the elder, could very easily be the deacon. The Levite could be any one of us. The man was going down, and he fell among robbers. He was stripped, and he was beat, and he was departed, left for dead, wounded, needing help. Does the world leave people for dead today? Beat you up, chew you out, and spit you, leaving you with nothing. Broken hearts, people chasing after the wrong things. Let us not be the people who look to pass it off. We talked about this morning with David. David didn't look to pass off the responsibility. David took the bull by the horn, I guess you could say, and just took it on right then and there because he knew that the Lord would provide. And so as the priest comes down, I love it how it says, "Now by chance, a priest was coming down the road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side." Do we do that in our world today with sin? We see something, maybe with another brother, maybe with somebody else. We see an opportunity to teach someone the gospel. We see the opportunity to present truth. We see the opportunity to help somebody, and we just take the long way around. It's like whenever you're going to the grocery store and you see someone selling something at one of the doors, and you're like, "I'll go in this door over here because I don't want to be asked to buy any more cookies this year," right? Whatever it may be. Sometimes we can fall into the trap of avoiding. But we can't do that because there's nothing more important than the soul and saving the soul. Soul saving is the most important thing we can do, and it's not just the Levite, it's not just the priest that has a chance in this. It's the Levite as well. And so the priest goes the opposite way, and you said, well, why would he not help? He should most definitely be. Why would the preacher not stop and help someone? Why would the elder not? Are they not high ranking in the church? Are they not supposed to be the ones being the example? Yet they keep on going. What kind of example is that setting for the people outside of the church? What is that setting for the people inside the church? What kind of example are we being to other people? That's a key thing that we need to be examining in our life. I've said this before, but we can lead in different ways. You can lead by what you say or don't say. And so often people always think about leaders being the leader that always says something. The world is watching us. I've said this before, but the world is watching us, and they're watching how we act and how we respond and how we care for one another. So we need to make sure that we are putting on the example that glorifies Christ. So the priest goes on. He should have stopped, but he goes on. And it says, "So likewise a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side." The same response. The same response. The person left for dead. The world cast him to the side. Too far gone, too bad to help, can't do nothing for him. But a Samaritan, I thought they were no good. I thought they weren't good for anything. The most unlikely of characters came, and when he saw him, he had what? He had compassion. You know what I think can be sad in the world today if we allow it to happen? Someone's in need of help. Members of the church walk by and don't help. Yet the person of the world has more compassion than we do. The person of the world is showing more grace and more love than we are. The person of the world is showing love that we should be showing. The person of the world is showing more forgiveness than we're showing. Isn't that sad if we allow that to creep into the church today? Oh, it's sad. And so the Samaritan stops and he helps. And he had compassion. He went to him and he bound up his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. I love it how the Samaritan drops everything he's doing to help. He drops everything he's doing to have compassion. He drops everything he's doing to help somebody that he doesn't know. Is this person a Jew? Is the Samaritan stopping to help a Jew? How would the Jew respond? Doesn't matter, because the Samaritan sees past it. The Samaritan sees a soul, which is what we need to be seeing. We don't need to be seeing someone's status in the world. We don't need to be seeing what race someone is, or how much money they have, or where they're from, or what town they're from. It doesn't matter. What we need to be seeing is a soul. It's not their name, it's their soul. And it's where their soul is going to spend eternity. He saw him and he had compassion. He went and bound him up his wounds and pouring on oil and wine. And then this is beautiful. Then he sat him on his own animal. He doesn't go and find another one. He puts him on his own animal. Puts him in his own car, I guess you could say, in today's terms. And he brought him to an inn and he took care of him. And the next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. You notice how he doesn't waste any time? He doesn't worry what the tab could be. Brother Aaron Gallagher shared a story, and I do not remember who the missionary was that originally shared the story. So I'll have to find the podcast. You can go back and listen to Aaron share it, but it's a beautiful story. But they were doing an overseas missionary trip, and there was a couple preachers down there doing it. And there was this gentleman that would walk to the service every single night. Well, he didn't walk. He would crawl to the service every single night because he was unable to walk. Didn't have a wheelchair, didn't have anything like that. So he would crawl miles to service every night. And the missionary said, I've got to talk to that guy after the first service. And then some people came up and talked to him, and the guy had crawled away already, so he didn't get to talk to him. So he came by the next night. And he says, I've got to stop. I'm doing it directly after I finish speaking. I'm talking to this gentleman. And he went to one of the elders of the church down there, and he said, oh, that's one of our members. Crawls here every single day. Mile after mile, he just crawls there. The dedication. There's people now that won't even get in a car and drive 5 minutes to church service. This guy is crawling to church. The dedication. We can learn so much from that. And so he says, well, I want to help him out. So these missionaries take him to a local hospital, and they say, we don't care what it costs, just go ahead and fix it. We'll pay for it. So he's in the hospital, they fix it, and they go to get the bill, and they instantly have this idea of, I wonder how much this is about to cost. Can we afford this? Healthcare in America is a whole lot different than healthcare in other places. Money in other places is a whole lot different than money here. They were worried about how much it's going to cost. It ended up being like $800-something. And here this man is, completely new person. But they had the faith, they literally are the parable of the Good Samaritan. They took someone and they helped him. They weren't worried about how much it's going to cost. Because what? Because God is going to provide. Who does the denarii, who does the money belong to in the first place? It's not us, it's God. God gives, and God's going to give more as we give more. So he took 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper, saying, take care of him, and whatever more you spend, I will repay you when I come back. Then the key is in verse 36. Which of these 3 do you think proved to be a neighbor to the man who fell among robbers? Who do you think? Verse 37. He said, the one who showed him mercy. And Jesus said to him, you go and do likewise. This evening, I want us to think about which of these 3 are we? This morning, we talked about the 3 different types of confidence. Do we have low confidence? Do we have high confidence? Or are we in that proper part of confidence? This evening, are we the person that walks by and doesn't help? Are we the person that thinks someone else will take care of that? Someone else will teach that person the gospel? Or are we the person who stops and has what? Compassion. This world is missing compassion. This world is missing compassion and love for one another. This world is missing forgiveness for one another. And in verse 37, he says the key to it all, the one who showed him mercy. You could also, in our world today, imply the one who showed forgiveness. We should be showing mercy because we want to receive mercy on our judgment day. We should show forgiveness to brothers and sisters because we want to receive forgiveness on that final day. We should show love because the love was first shown to us. And Jesus' response is, you go and do likewise. We have an opportunity to share the gospel with the entire world. But we have to have the confidence, not in ourselves, but in the Savior. It's not us saving somebody. It's God saving somebody. It's not our message that saves, it's God's message that saves. We have to have the confidence and the knowledge to know that people are still knocking at the door. The harvest is still plentiful, but as we learned this morning, the what? The laborers are few. Are you ready to be part of the laborers? Are you ready to work for the Lord? Are you ready to not be the Levite? Are you ready to not be the priest and walk by people anymore? But instead, are you ready to stop and have compassion and share the message that truly saves souls? When you look out at the world today, it seems darker than ever. Every day it seems like it gets darker and darker. Now you get into a political season and it seems like it gets even worse. There's more fighting. There's more bickering. There's more people that seem at odds than ever. You have war in the Middle East. You have all these different things going on. What's the cure to all of it? Jesus. What does that mean for us? We have to stop being the person that sits on the sideline and watches someone else play the game. My old baseball coach used to always say, did you come here to play or did you just buy a ticket today? We don't need to be in the business of buying tickets and sitting in the stands. We need to be in the business of being out and being active and working for the kingdom, working to glorify the Father, sharing this beautiful message with all of them, because Jesus said, you go. And you do likewise. You go. This evening when we leave here, we have the opportunity to go. We have the opportunity to go and to share the message and to love the Lord with all of our heart, not part of it. With all of our soul, not part of it. With all of our strength, not part of it. Family, we need to be in the business of trying to outdo one another with good works. We need to be in the business of showing the world the works that Christ has come down and given us as the example. The reason the world hated Christ so much was because his light was shining so much on their darkness. You work on the Sabbath? Bad. Can't do that, can you? You heal this person over here? You can't do that. Bad, right? Christ continued and Christ stayed on the right path, and Christ committed to finishing what he was sent to do. We were sent to go and share the gospel, and let us not fail to do that. If you've been the Levite, if you've been the priest, you have the opportunity to change that, and you have the opportunity to be the Samaritan. You have the opportunity to be the person that can stop and help the one that is knocked down next to you and pick that up. That could be the brother or the sister in the pew next to you. That could be the person that you work with. That could be the person in your family that is knocked down, not attending church, not doing whatever it may be, down on their luck, as some people say. Somebody searching for the truth. It could be anybody. And we have the chance to go and do likewise, just as this lawyer and scribe was told to do. If you have anything on your heart this evening that is hindering you from going and doing likewise, if you've been that Levite, if you've been that priest, if you're failing to show compassion, as I said this morning, your past does not have to define your future. And when you leave here tonight, you don't have to be the same person as the person you were when you came in. Let us be a church and let us be a congregation that goes and does likewise, because this community needs it. This community is counting on it. If we don't tell them the truth, who is going to? The news? Our political leaders? Who's going to share the truth if the church fails to share the truth? Let us be a church that goes and does likewise. If you have anything this evening that you want to turn over to the Lord, or if you want to be like the brother this morning and you want to give your life to Christ so that you can leave here confident, knowing that you have a salvation that leads to eternity, you can do that this evening as we stand with Brother Brian and as we sing.